Hey, welcome to the Lost Behind the Scenes podcast for Season 2, Episode 2. And it's so great that we get to do this. Just want to give a big shout out to everyone who's watching. Like the video, share it with friends. Know it's going to bless people. But we just done Season 2, Episode 2, entitled The Skin We're In.
Yeah.
Which was based on the Bible verses where Jesus talks about you can't put old wine into new wineskins.
You can't put new wine into old wineskins.
There we go. I got it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Great. To kind of kick it off, I want to just grab a part of your message, and we'll probably jump off the back of it, where you ask the question, what skin are you in?
Yeah.
What skin are you in? And you said this, because the skin you are in, the mode, the patterns of thought, the attitude will determine whether God can do the new thing in us, or more specifically, whether we can contain the new thing God is doing because God is going to do it.
Yeah.
And we've talked over a few weeks, and you've highlighted religion, empires, structures, all of that. How does that fit in within this message?
Well, there's no doubt that's what Jesus was talking about. I mean, more than anything. And of course, like we've said before, there's always a personal application to whatever Jesus was teaching. But first and foremost, Jesus was talking about, again, the temple, the religious structures, and all the rules and regulations, and they had, masses of them. And not only did they have that, but they had lawyers, scribes. That's what scribes were, lawyers,
Right.
who actually helped people. So if you wanted to know, how do I get clean? I'm a leper, how do I get clean? You would hire a scribe who would help you interpret the law. So Jesus is speaking about all of this elaborate structure and saying that's an old wineskin. You can't put what God is doing today into that old wineskin. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
You've got to have a completely new wineskin. You can't just polish it. You can't just make a few tweaks here and there. It just doesn't work. So that's the first thing, that whole, if you like, religious structure that ran society. But also, I think it has an application for government, empire. The way that the whole thing was set up, they were under occupation from Rome. Jesus was saying, you can't look there to see what God's doing. That's not the place where you look. God is doing something else. And of course, I illustrated, I think in the message today, that when Jesus died, the curtain in the temple was torn in two.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't the biggest ever explanation that God is saying, I'm not there,
No.
and I'm not going to be there.
No.
I'm breaking out.
Yeah.
And I'm pouring out what I'm doing like wine. I'm pouring it out like water, like we talked about last week with John the Baptist.
Yeah.
I think those are the things that Jesus was speaking directly to.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the personal application for all those that heard it and for us today. What skin am I in? Will I be flexible, or am I going to become rigid?
Yeah.
Like the systems, the structures, am I going to have these processes? Am I going to think God did it like that once? He does it like that every time?
Yeah, you highlighted that quite a bit in your message in terms of us, you talked about the wilderness and the whole thing of the people in the Bible, the Israelites, they'd seen God part seas.
Yeah.
But when it's different, wilderness, they were expecting this is the way God does it.
Yeah.
I guess we can fall into that trap as well in our own lives, that God did it this way.
Yeah.
And that's the way he's going to do it forever.
Exactly. Either for us, in our church environment, if we've seen something happen in church or been in a season of church life that's been exciting and we've enjoyed it, or it's been real refreshing to us, we think that's how God's going to move all the time. Or sometimes even when we see how God works in other people. There's this story, isn't there, towards the end of the Gospels where, one of the disciples says to Jesus, Jesus is telling Peter what's going to happen to him. And Peter says, well, what about him? And Jesus said, well, that's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
What I'm doing with him will be what I do with him. You've just got to focus. And so sometimes I think we look at what God did in other people's lives. And the good thing about that is it gives us faith to think that God could do something in our lives. But if we then get locked into it happened this way for them, it was going to happen that way for us, then that's where we get stuck, and we our attitude can get off, or our, the skin can get a bit rigid.
Yeah.
If, using the wineskin metaphor,
yeah.
we can just become rigid
Yeah.
and inflexible and stop believing God can work even though my circumstances are different.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it reminds me of the story of Jesus with the centurion.
Yeah.
And the centurion's faith that actually you just have to send the word.
Yeah.
And that had never happened. And Jesus' response, I've never seen faith so great.
Yeah.
Because this guy's like, you can do it whatever way. I see this happen, you can do it that way. You mentioned about seed and being planted, and obviously the seed having to die and all of that. And I just kind of wanted to pick up, you kind of just threw it out there today. But you talked about this whole thing of a new wineskin and adjusting our ego.
Yeah.
So we've talked about religion, we've talked about the temple, we've talked about all of those things, like they were being broken. Jesus saying there's a new wine coming. And then you threw out for us ourselves, adjusting our ego. I wondered if you'd touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess there's more of this to come in season 3, which with that, because that finished season 2.
Yeah.
But I guess I criticised the religion a lot, because one of the things that religion produces is guilt and shame, and a sense that I can't achieve and I'm not worthy. And so we criticise that and we've jettisoned that. But I actually think there's something worse in our culture today, that our culture is worse than that, because our culture is built on comparison.
Yeah.
So, and we see that, I won't go into it all, but we see that across social media, etc. And we're comparing ourselves to the brilliant, the best, the top 5%. I'm not comparing myself to my neighbour. I'm comparing myself to somebody who always looks beautiful on the Instagram feed, who's always successful, etc. And so that comparison can make me think that nothing's happening in my life. And therefore I get, if there's a season, so the purpose of the seed is the seed has to die.
Yeah.
And it goes into obscurity. And it has to go into obscurity to be developed and to grow. It's like a baby in a womb. A baby needs 9 months in a womb to be protected. Its hiddenness is not punishment, it's protection. But when we get hidden, we're like, why isn't anybody seeing me? Why isn't anybody liking my post? Why isn't anybody inviting me to do whatever? It happens in church life. Why is nobody recognizing me? Why is nobody asking me to do X, Y, and Z? And sometimes we think the problem is people, when we're actually in a season where God is protecting us, hiding us, developing us. Now, if I believe God is working, I can have the right attitude that thinks, well, God's going to work in this and through this. And maybe somebody should be recognizing, maybe somebody should be seeing me. But God's working, so I can trust him with that in obscurity. I can trust him with that hiddenness in my life, rather than react. And so the problem is ego, because the whole world revolves around me and not us, and therefore what God is doing. So we've created a society very different to the society Jesus lived in, where your value and your reputation was all based on the community that you were in, what people, the community, would think of you. Now it's centered around me, not centered around us. So I live for me. Everything I do is for me, my choices. We have become, the individual has become the sovereign person in the whole story, rather than humanity as a whole. When God created in the beginning, he didn't say, let us make a man.
No.
He let us make mankind in our image. And so the whole thing, we've lost this collective and this community. And I guess we'll get into that a little bit in further, because to fix that in us, God has to deal with our ego. My ego. I have to realize it's not all about me. And that's a constant fight for all of us. But when I realize that, it brings life and it brings freedom. It brings opportunity into my life. When I stop living for just the whole world orbiting around me, and recognize the contribution I can make together with others, I think we discover purpose. That's why Lost The whole series is based on we've
Yeah.
lost something. We can rediscover the mission
Yeah.
and the message of Jesus. And this, like the most fulfilled people I know are people who feel like working with others, they're contributing
Yeah.
to something.
Yeah.
Many of those, in church, whether they're volunteering or whatever, they feel that contribution is one of the most valuable things in their world.
Yeah.
To get to that point where that world doesn't revolve around me, God has to deal with my ego.
Yeah, definitely.
And he does that with love and kindness, but he does have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's I guess that was part of the message today, although we didn't get into that.
No.
So there will be times of obscurity. There will be times of pressing. We called it crushing, didn't
crushing.
we? Squeezing. We need the squeeze.
Yeah.
But that's not the destination. That's
No.
the process.
And you said that's not to crush you, it's to develop you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key thing to recognize, that like, yes, there are moments where I'm being squeezed,
Yeah.
but it's not to crush, it's to develop you.
Yeah.
Which is so powerful. I was just thinking, as you were saying, and the seed has to die,
Yeah.
but then it produces, and you said like a tree will produce like 250,000 seeds, but that seed has to die. And I was just thinking of when Jesus says, if you lay down your life,
Yeah.
you'll find life.
Find life. Yeah.
And it was like, it's just, it seems so opposite in our world, especially today, that if I lay down my life, if I lay down all of my dreams, all of those things,
I can't get there.
I can't, no.
Because the ego is centric now. And this is not a criticism of people.
No.
This is our culture.
Yeah.
So what religion did in making everybody feel guilt and shame, our culture has done, making us not fix our ego.
Yeah.
So this is not a criticism of individuals and saying you're too egocentric. We all are.
Yeah.
Because our culture has made us this way.
Yeah.
Now, there's a better way.
Yeah.
Jesus' way.
Yeah.
And obviously to change us and transform us, there's a process he has to do in our lives. That's the point, I think, of where we were getting to there.
Well, I hope that's whet your appetite for season 3, because I think you're going to dive into that a little bit more in season 3. But it's been great, season 2, and we've had 2 episodes. Will it only be 2 episodes in season 3?
3.
3 episodes. We're going all out here. Make sure you share, make sure you like, make sure you're subscribed, and also, if you want to be part of our services in the room, get booked in for this weekend. It's going to be a great weekend in church. Look forward to seeing you real soon.